103 years ago, in the midst of great human suffering, a movie was made that was a visual masterpiece and still to this day influences creators in the cinematic industry. The movie is The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, released in 1920. This film, considered the epitome of German expressionism in the medium of film, is a marvel to be seen and an amazing accomplishment to have been created. I will tell you about the political atmosphere in which the film was made, an introduction to the writers and the director, an old narrative technique used that was new to the medium of film, the importance of the film's visual style, and the film's influence on American cinema. The environment where the film was made was a decimated one. Germany has suffered greatly, and it's represented in the horror-esque mood of the film. World War I was started in 1914 and lasted till 1919, the same year of this film's production. The Germans were losing World War I and had lost 7 million soldiers in the 5-year period. 2 days before signing the peace treaty to end the war, the German population revolted because they lost faith in the controlling government's ability to protect its citizens and were tired of seeing men futilely sent to the front lines. From 1918 to 1919, another 700,000 German civilians died of starvation from famine throughout Germany. And in the end of 1919, Germany ended its revolt with the signing of the Weimar Constitution and started a great German film period called the Weimar Cinema Era. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari was written by Hans Janowitz and Karl Mayer. Hans Janowitz was a World War I veteran and returned from the war a pacifist based on events he had experienced. Janowitz wrote 9 other successful screenplays before he retired to the oil industry. Karl Mayer, also a pacifist, teamed up with Janowitz to write The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, and it was the earliest projects for them. Mayer became an accomplished screenwriter in a silent era of German film. He worked with Robert Wiene on a second film and more acclaimed directors of the Weimar era. Also, he wrote on American film Sunrise, which won an Oscar. Being of Jewish descent, Mayer fled Nazi Germany to England in 1933. Mayer was known for writing an image rather than plot, which led to a decline of his work with the invention of talking films, referred to as talkies. The director, Robert Wiene, was a prolific artist, completing multiple productions per year. IMDb has assigned Wiene with 66 writing credits, 52 directing credits, and 8 production credits. Wiene studied law at the University of Berlin before getting involved in small stage acting. And in 1930s, Wiene fled Germany to France, fearing persecution for being Jewish descent, even though he identified as a Protestant. But also, at this time, people were saying they were Protestant to hide their Jewish lineage, so this may not be true and Wiene was just trying to hide in public view. Also, the Nazis began banning expressionistic art, which I'm sure motivated Wiene to deport to a more accepting environment. Wiene had a successful career, transitioned into talking films, and died of cancer during production of Ultimatum in 1938. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari utilizes an old narrative technique called a frame story, or an embedded narrative, a narrative technique that places a story within a story. Classical literature examples are Canterbury Tales, The Odyssey, and 1001 Nights. A modern cinematic example would be Forrest Gump. So Forrest Gump sits on a park bench recounting his life story to characters waiting for the bus. Forrest realizes Jenny is down the street, he runs to her, and he takes the narrative to present time, which is a solid example of a frame story. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is one of the earliest uses of this frame story in film and has been a controversial aspect of the film. Some people believe the reveal that Francis is the patient and we've been witnessing his delusion is an overstretch of authority from the director Robert Wiene. Siegfried Kauser's book, From Caligari to Hitler, implies this edit went against the original Janowitz and Mayer screenplay and contradicted the exact message the writers were trying to express with their narrative. Dr. Caligari's represents the oppressive authoritarian and Caesar is the blind sheep population following orders. While other critics believe the frame story is a clever plot twist and just adds a new dimension to the narrative. The visual style of the film is one of its defining characteristics. The film was one of the first to use German Expressionism style, and using the Expressionistic style for set construction enhances the distorted memory of the narrative. Francis, retelling the story, turns out to be an insane person, and the irregular shaped walls represent his warped mind. Also, the expressionistic font used in the title screens add to the warped nature of the scenes. The set design unnaturally enhances depth and is perfect use of space in a studio setting. The film utilizes abnormal shadows painted on walls and directly on the characters. They use stage lights to emphasize what's going on in the scenes. And the film frequently used iris shots of all shapes to transition between scenes. All of these techniques culminated in a very unique viewing experience. Even though Mayer is the only person who worked on the film that had anything produced in America, the film and others of the Weimar era have incredibly influenced American cinema. Part of this is because Hollywood became a haven for people fleeing Nazi Germany and another world war in Europe. Other reasons are individuals like Alfred Hitchcock went to Germany and worked with UFA, Germany's national film studio. Getting to work in Germany and have first-hand experience led to Hitchcock's style of film noir and the use of suspense and horror. Tim Burton's entire catalog has representations of this film, and sometimes even recreates scenes from previous movies in the Weimar era. Just as much as this film, Tim Burton is recognized for using skewed and exaggerated angles. Caesar's aesthetic, from the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, are borrowed for the protagonist in Tim Burton's Edward Scissorhands and Alex Proyas' The Crow. And both films had an atmosphere of unease throughout. Orson Welles utilized the use of shadows to create drama and also was involved with the noir film style within America. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari is a fantastic film, and I am surprised it was made for multiple reasons. The era and time leading up to the making of this film was a horrific environment. I'm surprised resources were around for its creation. The writers and directors were early in their stages of their career and had a small amount of experience. The expressionistic style had not been represented on film, and it's dark in nature. Regular civilian life in Germany was difficult, so maybe they would like to see something bright and uplifting. But nonetheless, the individuals did create a great film with a plot twist narrative and original visual style. A style so good, it's been copied and repurposed many times over. I encourage you to find a quiet time, preferably at night as it was recommended to me, and watch this film. You might be surprised how many films you've seen that reference it and how much you enjoy it. And I want to thank you very much for listening to me.